This is What the FC. I'm Will Martin.
And I'm Matt McCutcheon.
MLS is weird, and we love a good story. Let's go. Welcome back to What the FC. Today, we are going to be tackling episode 1 of our MLS 101 mini-series. Today, we're just going to be taking you through a real brief overview and introduction to Major League Soccer. So we're going to be touching on history of the league, where it started to where it is today, a little overview of the league, what does the competition format look like, and whether anyone actually cares about this league. We're going to touch a little bit on the TV viewership statistics, the attendance, that kind of stuff, just to kind of give you a context of that. So looking forward to it, Matt?
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what like the TV ratings and fan following, I guess like the positioning of MLS within American sports, compared to NBA and I guess like the capacity to like one day, I mean, as a soccer fan, obviously I want soccer to be like number one in the U.S., but it'll be interesting to see like how far away we are currently from that.
So in this, we're going to assume nothing. We're going to assume you or anyone else knows absolutely nothing about this. So we're going to go from basic and advance you all the way through to complex. So Major League Soccer, MLS for short, is the first division, the highest level of professional soccer in the United States and Canada. Okay. It's like the MLB and NHL. Okay. So it's also got the Canadian teams in it.
Yeah. So kind of like So like MLB, NHL, NBA. You have Toronto.
Yeah, NBA does as well.
Yeah. So that's cool.
So it's almost a little too country, similar to the Premier League, right? You've got some Welsh teams as well as some English teams.
Yeah, fair enough.
So a similar type of idea there. This is the first division, the highest level of soccer in the United States and in Canada. So the way the league was founded, the genesis was the United States bidding to host the 1994 FIFA World Cup. I think this is something that a lot of casual MLS fans or people that don't know MLS don't know. So we bid,
unless you're from like that older
exactly.
Generation. Right. Well, not old generation. I don't want to call anyone out or anything, but like from the generation that was alive and remembers that time.
I mean, both me and you were born in 1999. Yeah. So this was 5 years before we were born. Yeah. So the U.S. successfully bid to host the 1994 World Cup, but the stipulation was that they would found a new U.S. soccer number one league. We used to have the NASL back in like the 70s and 80s, and that saw some brief success and then came crashing down.
That was like
really hard.
George Best, Pele, like New York Cosmos.
Pele with the New York Cosmos. If you're familiar with that era, it hit some highs, but it came crashing down real hard. So the U.S. was without a major professional soccer league for almost a decade, and so this was the stimulus to bring it in. So they began play in 1996 with only 10 teams. So they only had 10 teams from the start. Inaugural season was 1996, and at the beginning, it was a lot like the NASL days. They had a lot of financial problems. They had a lot of operational problems. And it ended up with 2 of the teams folding by 2002. So they encountered a lot of issues at the beginning. Yeah,
I think in WSL, the National Women's Soccer League is kind of experiencing that same like...
Yeah, you get that it's new and exciting, and then it kind of settles in and there's no more recency bias, and it just kind of... How can you maintain that momentum? And they are seeing a little bit of that struggle right now, I think. So early MLS was that really weird time of MLS. They really tried to Americanize it a bit too much. Obviously, you want the league to be inherently American, but they went a little overboard with it in the early years. As I think most soccer fans can kind of agree, we did the crazy like
penalty run-ups or whatever. That like whenever I think MLS, I think of just very obscure, just totally off the rails in terms of like in comparison with European soccer, something that I'm more familiar with. So
they had an NHL style shootout for the first couple years of the league.
Doesn't make sense whatsoever because NHL is on a smaller playing field or whatever, and the surface you're going a lot faster. So like the fact that people are gonna be like sprinting from 30 freaking yards out or whatever, running up to the keeper. It was just an absolute nightmare. Y'all definitely should do some homework and go look up highlights of that on YouTube. It's really fascinating.
Oh yeah, if you don't know what we're talking about, go look up Major League Soccer like shootout from like 2000, and it's so much fun. But also really dumb. They also had like the clock would count down to 0, so it wasn't on the referee's watch like it is in European soccer and stuff. So
it's still like that in high school.
Yeah, it's still like if you've ever played high school soccer, like that kind of thing, right? Okay. So they obviously eliminated that stuff around the late 90s, early 2000s because there was a lot of backlash from it. And then 2002, the Miami Fusion and the Tampa Bay Mutiny folded. The league decided to contract them.
Good riddance with those names. Good Lord.
Oh, yeah. There were some epic names in early MLS. So they had a lot of issues early on. But really the stimulus for them stabilizing the league was another World Cup. So in 2002, the USA made this really shocking surprise run to the quarterfinals.
Yeah, which I wasn't even aware of until I mean, they mention it every World Cup, but you kind of forget about it. And so just like preparing for like this episode, I was like, what the heck?
I mean, that US team was legit. This was the World Cup in Korea and Japan. Okay. And this was like Eddie Pope at center back, Claudio Reyna. Okay. So if you follow Bundesliga, that is Gio Reyna's dad. Yeah. So he was a legit holding midfielder. That's Landon Donovan when he was young. I mean, just a really epic team of some big names in if you know the United States national team history. So that kind of fueled a rise in interest in the game, and we'd also shifted over. So the original commissioner left and was replaced by Don Garber, who is still the commissioner today. He made a lot of changes that helped stabilize the league financially. So they focused on building more soccer-specific stadiums. Columbus Crew was the first soccer-specific stadium in the U.S. with Map Free Stadium. That was 1999 when they built that thing.
Didn't they just rebuild?
They just built a new one. Yeah, so they were still playing in it. Yeah, they were still playing in it in 2020. So it was a 2-decade-old stadium, and that thing was like bare bones, but it was at the time crazy, right? So they really shifted the focus to building soccer-specific stadiums so that you just weren't in these cavernous NFL stadiums that you couldn't fill and didn't have good atmosphere and all that kind of stuff.
Which isn't necessarily like the case anymore because you have like Atlanta United. Those of you who don't know, they play in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
Right. Which Seattle plays in CenturyLink Stadium.
Exactly. Yep. And they fill it up almost as much. I think Atlanta United has more attendance than...
Seattle, they do.
Well, even than the Falcons, or maybe season ticket holders or something. I remember seeing some statistic about that on like ESPN or something.
But they are definitely, you'll see later on when we get to the attendance, they're kind of the two outliers.
Okay.
Everyone else is a little bit lower on the attendance figure, so it makes much more sense to have these smaller stadiums where it's packed. Yeah. You'd rather have a 20,000 seat stadium and 22,000 people want to come to the game, and you have to leave 2,000 people out rather than have 20,000 people in a 50,000 seat stadium.
Yeah.
Big difference there. So they really stabilized following that 2002 FIFA World Cup. Obviously, that was the year that the two teams folded. They kind of consolidated a lot of the ownership and got it on better financial footing. And then they started expanding the league again in 2005. So we went from 8 teams in 2004 to 26 teams now. We've got 23 in the U.S. and 3 in Canada.
Yeah. That's a lot of teams. Just like I know within the Premier League, I think it's 19 teams that they have.
20.
Or is it 20? Okay, yeah.
20. Yeah, it's an even 20 in
Premier
League.
Yeah. And then the bottom 3 get relegated and what have you. But 26, and I think it's supposed to be what, like how many once Charlotte's like in
of the announced expansion teams, we're gonna be at 30 by 2023. So Austin FC comes in next year.
Okay.
Charlotte comes in 2022, and then I believe St. Louis and Sacramento in 2023 is the target.
Okay.
That will take us to 30. So that is 10 more than what the Premier League has. So that's pretty crazy. So we'll break down how they kind of do that from a competition format here in a little bit. Obviously, you have to have a conference system like a lot of American sports leagues do.
We have like an Eastern Conference and like NBA, Western Conference. I just hope it's not as like confusing as NFL is in terms of having the AFL and then oh god, what I don't even remember what the other like league is. You have like
AFC.
AFC, not AFL.
AFC
and NFC North, and like those are all broken down into their smaller divisions too.
And it gets crazy. So no divisions here, just straight 2 conferences.
Okay.
But
cool.
Yeah. So what makes what makes this able to happen is MLS is actually a single entity structure. Each team is actually technically owned by the league and then individually operated by the league investors. They're just commonly referred to as the owners, but importantly, there's no promotion relegation due to this structure. So that is one of the ways that they actually financially stabilize the league.
Yeah.
You can't convince an owner to come in and spend millions and millions of dollars on a risky business venture.
Yeah.
So they need to create this structure where you're guaranteed this amount of revenue every year and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And all our American sports fans will be really familiar with that. That's how the NHL, MLB, all the NFL, there's no promotion relegation in those. No. It's a very American thing. You need to have an encourager for people to spend money because they know they're going to be in the league year on year and have this base amount that they're going to earn. It makes it much less volatile of an investment if you're thinking just dollars and cents.
Yeah. But I mean, I think the danger with that is like stagnation, and people can easily take advantage of that. Like, I mean, in NBA, you see teams like will tank like an entire season. Or NFL, I think it was, what was it? Tank for Tua was like the trend or whatever. And so you have these people like take advantage of it, and I mean they're not punished. I think like properly for I mean, as a fan, I wouldn't want to see my team just go like freaking 2-16 or what have you, just so that we can get a quarterback that might be good like the next year as a rookie. So I mean,
it gets frustrating.
Yeah,
it gets frustrating. So Matt, for like American sports fans, someone that doesn't know soccer, just give them a quick explainer of what promotion relegation is in terms of like European soccer, or really soccer anywhere other than the United States of America.
Okay. Promotion relegation, in the most simple terms, is you have your top flight, you have the NFL, but in order to keep things fresh, in order to punish teams for not being like at the level of play that everyone else is, the bottom three normally, depends on like which leagues you're in, it can be more or less, the bottom three teams that finish will get relegated. So they will get demoted into the lower league. So it'd be like if... who's a terrible baseball team?
Like someone that's been bad in MLB for a long time. It's like them getting demoted to AAA.
Yeah, exactly. And so then you have the people in like the second division. The top three will get promoted and go into the top flight, into the Premier League. And so then you have new faces, a new story. You have, I mean, sometimes you have investors like who don't really know what they're doing, but will just like splash so much cash on these players and hope.
Because when you get promoted to the first division, you get the TV contracts that come with it.
Yeah, and I know in the Premier League, so the top flight in England, their TV contract is something like,
it's ridiculous.
It's like $60 or $70 million per season in terms of like their bonus that each team gets, and like that's like the amount of money that like a lot of high level teams in other leagues are making total, not just on TV deals. So you get the TV deals, you get the brand exposure, you get a lot more fans coming, merchandise sales, everything is boosted, and so it makes it a lot more competitive.
Works the other way too, though. When you go down, makes it difficult. You got to start laying people off. You got to trim player wages off. So and it's really difficult to come right back up. So it really incentivizes you to not be one of those bottom three teams, because bad things happen when you get relegated.
Yeah, and so I think, I don't know, I'm torn in terms of like bringing promotion relegation to MLS. I don't think it's realistic right now, but I think in like 10 or 15 years, I think it's like crucial that we do, in order that we have teams like, I mean, I guess maybe not as much this season for those of you who've been following MLS, but like Orlando City, like they have been absolute garbage their entire existence. And it's like, we don't want to have just these garbage teams. Like we want to, I mean, if they are garbage, we want them fighting for their lives to like still be playing like in the league.
Exactly. Orlando City fans, we love you, but your team has sucked for 5 years now, since they came into the league as an expansion team in 2015. But yeah, think about that. If we had promotion relegation, they would have come into the league and then immediately gotten relegated.
Exactly.
Like, so as long as we're still in this expansion phase, you have to make it a safe investment for investors. But I am with you. I hope we see promotion relegation in the United States in the future. We're also going to have a much stronger second division to make that possible.
Yes.
The USL, which is the United Soccer League, is currently the second division in the United States, and it is not not exactly strong.
No.
Not really high attendance numbers. Depends on where you go, but you've got clubs. Charlotte Independence, for example, is a part of USL, and then you've got some like.
You got Charleston Battery.
You've got like Toronto FC2.
Yeah.
You've got MLS teams operating in that league. So there's a lot of problems to solve if we want promotion relegation here. But that's kind of the quick promotion relegation explainer there. If you want to know a little bit more about the single entity structure and all these crazy roster rules and financial stability and all that kind of stuff that comes from this, go over to episode 4. We're going to be breaking that one down. That's going to be a headache, but it's really fascinating. I mean, there's from designated players to targeted allocation money, general allocation money, homegrown players, all this kind of stuff, whether the league gets a cut when you sell people. I mean, just some crazy stuff that goes on in Major League Soccer. And if you don't know it, you will be lost trying to figure out what signings your team's making. So definitely tune over to that episode. We have a great time with that one. Kind of back to a little quick overview. The regular season for Major League Soccer runs from late February / early March, depending on the year, and all the way through October. And then you've got the playoffs in late October into November.
Okay, is that like mainly due to like weather in North America, like being frozen winter, so you can't go to like Vancouver? Or,
I mean, imagine trying to play New Year's Eve game in like Montreal or Boston. It's just not possible, really. It's just really not possible. So they would have to take some sort of winter break, as well as compete with all the major sports in America, like the NFL, NBA, that are all on that fall to spring schedule. So it'd be really difficult. Obviously, Major League Soccer runs into some problems with its summer schedule from when there's a World Cup or whatever. There are people that miss league games, and that's a problem with them. They try to take breaks to coincide with the international breaks, and that definitely is a problem, but summer soccer in the U.S. is pretty great, and if you're a European fan, this gives you some soccer in that dull European off-season gap. You can follow all your transfer rumors for your Premier League team or La Liga team, and go to some MLS games.
That was always my like resolution for the summers. I would be like, oh gosh, I finally have some time. I can go watch some MLS, figure out what the heck that's all about, but then end up getting like a job.
So it's obviously it's really for two reasons. One, to avoid the horrible winter weather we have in the northern reaches of Canada and the U.S., and then number 2, to put ourselves in a more advantageous TV market where there's a less saturated market in a very saturated sports landscape in the U.S. So that's kind of the reasoning there. We'll probably see that sticking around for the foreseeable future. They will probably have to try to shift to align with the world soccer calendar at some point if they want to be recognized as a top league, but that is such pie in the sky stuff that it's not even really worth talking about right now.
Fair enough.
To move over to how you win a championship in MLS. So the regular season is 34 games. Like we spoke about earlier, you've got 26 teams currently, so there's no way you can just do a single table. So you've got teams geographically divided into Western and Eastern conferences. So Charlotte FC coming in 2022, it's obviously going to be Eastern Conference. That means an unbalanced schedule. So currently at 26 teams, it changes every year because we're always bringing in expansion teams currently. But currently you play twice against everyone in your conference and then once against most of the other teams in the other conferences, but actually not all. So because of the amount of teams, 2020 was the first year that not every team would play every team.
Oh, wow.
So you actually play 10 of the 13 teams in the other conference right now.
Wow.
And just because there's no better way to do it right now. So obviously once it gets to 30, maybe that might change around a little bit. It's changing every year, but that's how it works right now. So the team with the most points out of all teams, between Western and Eastern Conference, out of all teams, wins the Supporters' Shield. So they're the regular season champion.
Okay, so like the Milwaukee Bucks have like won the regular season, then you had Toronto or like the year before or something like that.
Exactly.
So that's like people are like, oh wow. Like
that is the Supporters' Shield. There's an actual big circular shield. It looks a lot like the Bundesliga trophy. It's a pretty cool thing. So that is what that team gets. Obviously, it's much more valuable to be the regular season champion in England in the Premier League because that is the whole goal.
Exactly.
It's just a table, and you're just trying to have the most points at the end.
Yeah.
But here, the Supporters' Shield, I mean, it's a trophy. You want to win it.
I never hear about it. Like people,
like no one's talking about the Milwaukee Bucks like being the best NBA team during the regular season.
Yeah.
I mean, no one would have cared that Toronto was the best team if they hadn't won the NBA championship that season. No one cares. Obviously, it's great because if your team wins the Supporters' Shield, that means every time you showed up at the stadium that year, you watched some pretty epic soccer.
Yeah.
And it sets you up better for what everyone actually cares about, which is the playoffs and MLS Cup. So you've got the MLS Cup playoffs. Right now, the top 7 teams from each conference qualify for the playoffs, so 14 total teams. If you finish first in your conference, so meaning you won the Supporters' Shield, or so if the Supporters' Shield winner came out of the Western Conference, they're number 1 in the Western Conference, and then whoever's number 1 in the Eastern Conference, you get a first round bye.
Okay.
So obviously that is very desirable.
Yes.
If you are at the top of the league, you're setting yourself up much, much better to win an MLS Cup. They recently switched the format of MLS Cup. They used to be just like Champions League. They used to have the home and away aggregate format.
Okay.
So if you're not familiar with Champions League or European soccer, Matt, like what did that look like in Champions League?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously this year's an anomaly because they had single elimination games, but so yeah, typically you'd have group stage, and so I mean every team would play every team in their group twice, I believe. But then the top teams would move on to the next part of the tournament, and so it would be, I mean, like Manchester City versus PSG or something. So you would play initially like the home game at Manchester City, and since I guess technically PSG would be at a disadvantage since they're playing away, their goals would count. They would be like more important if it was like 3-3 overall or something like that. But that's a little bit more technical than I need to go into.
Yeah, you play the 2 legs, right? And so like each team gets a home game.
Yeah, exactly. So that it's not like
it's like in America when you have like the best of 7 series and that kind of stuff. But it's just 2 games, and instead of just like you get 1 win if you win 1 game, the scores add up.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So like, I mean, it would be kind of crazy if they did that in basketball.
Oh, how awesome would that be?
You would have like a blowout, like 120 to like 90. So then you have to have like the next game. The other team would have to win by like 30 points.
So that's exactly how it works. And because it's lower scoring, you have the away goal rule, where if you score an away goal because it's quote unquote harder to score a goal away from home, then you get kind of like if it ends 3-3, but you scored like 2 away goals and the other team only scored 1 away goal, you would go through.
Yeah.
So that's how MLS used to do it.
Okay.
But they switched it for 2019. So last season was the first year they switched it to straight single elimination, knockout round, March Madness style knockout bracket.
Very cool.
You had the top 7 teams from each. The top seed gets the bye. Higher seed hosts all the way through, including MLS Cup. So
it gives more of like an incentive for teams to do well in the Supporters' Shield.
Exactly. So if you win the Supporters' Shield, you will be playing your entire playoff run at home.
Wow.
All the way through MLS Cup. Even MLS Cup is not neutral venue. It's not like the Super Bowl or like Champions League where the final is a neutral venue. Yeah. If you're the highest seed, you get to host your MLS Cup final at your place, which is awesome. I think it's so much fun.
Yeah,
and it incentivizes you to do well in the regular season and have that home field advantage.
Because like before that, like I mean, whenever people would mention that they won like the Community Shield or whatever, Supporter Shield. Yeah, sorry, Community Shield is Premier League.
Again, no one cares about it.
Yeah,
probably get the name wrong a lot.
yeah, exactly. My point. Exactly. So like, I don't really like dwell on that. Like if ever I see like a headline for the MLS, it's LA Galaxy wins like the MLS Cup or
MLS Cup, yeah. So that is how it works now. So it was a roaring success last year. I mean, it just made for some thrilling games.
I know it was similar to that in the Champions League this year. Because
people were talking about they want to see single elimination stick around in Champions League.
A couple of the executives of the UEFA who were saying, so like the executive board of the tournament that hosts it, were saying that they would like it, which was really kind of confusing because everyone's like, oh, they'll never continue with this because it's less TV time, less broadcast money. But everyone's just like dying to watch like the results, and it just led to these amazing upsets, like these Cinderella stories like you get in March Madness.
Yeah, exactly. So much fun, and you don't end up with a team just coming in trying to like tie the first leg 0-0 and then win it, and then you just get just absolute crazy games where everyone's going all out for the win.
Yeah.
So it was pretty awesome, but you still get a good value for doing well in the regular season. You can make that run, but if you're the last team in, you're playing away the whole way through, and playing away in MLS is hard. Think about being Charlotte FC. Say Charlotte FC is a 7 seed, and they qualify, and they have to go play, away at like Seattle or whatever.
Okay,
like
so it is.
Oh no, it's technically it's Eastern Conference, Western Conference. Okay. They play each other.
Theoretically, if they played each other.
I mean, think about like Miami having to play New York City or New England Revolution. Like that's a long way. That's not just like that's a flight. Right?
Yeah.
And then think about
you got
MLS.
Vancouver to like San Jose or what
it's hard to play away in MLS. You've got weird artificial turf fields in places because of crazy weather and like finances, and you've got NYCFC playing out of a baseball stadium. They play in Yankee Stadium, so they've got this super narrow field. So you've just got these crazy home field advantages in MLS. So it really does do you well to do well in the regular season and get to that point. So so that is how that works. You can win Supporter Shield, and that's great, but it really is just to set you up to win MLS Cup. You've also got some other competitions within the season. So you've got our version of the Champions League is the CONCACAF Champions League. Yeah. So we play against teams from Panama on up. So Central America. So
can I test your expertise and break down what CONCACAF stands for?
Oh no, there's no way I can break. Do you know?
Something.
If you want to learn what CONCACAF stands for, go to episode 5. By the time we record episode 5, we'll figure out what CONCACAF stands for, and please email us or drop us a note if we don't do that.
Yes.
But yeah, so you've got CONCACAF Champions League. Fun fact: a Major League Soccer team has never won the tournament. We've gotten to 3 finals and have never won it. So it's this big thing. So if you want to know more about that, go to that. You've also got U.S. Open Cup, which is our version of like the FA Cup.
Okay.
Like it's our
so
anyone can enter it.
So it'd be like in MLB, you have AAA, AA, single A, MLB all playing in a single tournament. So
exactly. It's just a single elimination tournament as well. I mean, it is a blast because you can see some amateur like semi-pro team beating professional teams, making a run to like the 4th round. And they get so much money from getting to play an away game at an MLS team and getting that gate revenue and stuff.
Second jobs or something like that. And so
so the U.S. Open Cup's a ton of fun.
Yeah, it's once in a lifetime.
And then you've also got the MLS All-Star Game. So similar to how American sports operate, we have a mid-season break for an All-Star Game. I actually got to work an MLS All-Star Game one time doing media operations down in Orlando. It's a really cool event.
What team did they play that year? Was that Atletico Madrid?
Yeah, they played Atletico Madrid.
Okay.
Yeah, so you basically have this all-star MLS team, and they'll bring in some big European side, and they play against them in a game, and it's always fascinating in this like weird little exercise. They're debating about going back to like an East-West format, so we'll see where the future of that goes. But if you want to know more about those special competitions within the season, go to episode 5 where we give you the entire breakdown on that.
Perfect.
So to kind of finish us off here, the real question is, does anything we just talked about, does anyone actually care in this country about this league?
Other than us.
Spoiler alert, the answer is yes, even though some people will tell you no. But this is going to kind of give you an idea of where Major League Soccer stands in sports hierarchy. I'm not going to walk up here and tell you that like this is the Premier League or that this is NFL or that this is even college football in the U.S. because it's not, right? It is what it is. So here's some statistics for you, Matt, okay? So the average attendance, this is according to SoccerStadiumDigest.com, the average attendance in 2019 for an MLS game, 21,310 people, okay? So compare that to the average attendance of major football leagues in Europe. Okay, Serie A just above 24,000.
That's the Italian league, by the way.
La Liga, Spanish league, 27,000. Okay, so we are right below them.
Yeah,
there, right.
That's
not that big. I mean, obviously, you have to think about the fact that like you know, there's some Serie A and La Liga stadiums that are quite small, and there's probably some more people that want to be at the games that can't be, and all this kind of stuff. But take that for whatever value it is. You've obviously got the Premier League, if you're curious. Premier League 38,000, Bundesliga 42,700. So
but their stadiums are ginormous,
massive stadiums. But Bundesliga's got some of the best fans in the world. I mean, Dortmund.
Absolutely crazy.
Bucket list to go to the Yellow Wall at Dortmund. That's one of the biggest clubs in Germany, and they have this awesome awesome supporter
there's like this
section.
one grandstand or whatever that is, I think it's like 30,000 people. Or
I don't even know.
It might be like, I know it's the largest single like stand in terms of like a section.
It's huge.
Yeah,
it's huge, but it's cool. I want to go stand in it. But so the outliers in that attendance figure, you've got Atlanta United. They play in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. They came in as a recent expansion team, and they have knocked it out of the park. Their average attendance, are you ready for this?
Yeah.
52,510 people. Okay, the next closest is Seattle at 40,247.
Just a measly 12,000 like fan difference. You know, you got
we're
stadiums
talking,
in
we're,
MLS.
We're talking average attendance here. Like this isn't their peak. This is what the average of season. So they're the two outliers. Everyone else
is there
averages.
Like a specific reason as to why? Just like the soccer culture, or like the way that the. Because I know with Seattle, like they don't have many other sports, so like they're, all their fans. That's like one of the things that they can hook onto.
Soccer culture in the Northwest is pretty big as well. I mean, I'm sure Portland would average, if they had that big of a stadium. They would probably average close to that as well. They just have a smaller stadium. So you've got like those limitations on it and stuff too. But I mean, that's a good question. That's something we should explore is like, how do these markets do so well and others don't? I mean, Atlanta has done an awesome job. Everyone else averages between, like the lowest is in the 14,000 range. And then you've got up to like FC Cincinnati is third place at 27,000. So everyone else is between those two things, and it averages out to about 21,000, 22,000. So that's where that is. And that's pretty crazy to me. So all in all, like attendance definitely has some room for growth, but it's very healthy at the moment, and I'm excited for people to actually be back in the stadium. Obviously attendance numbers are coming down right now because it's like 10% capacity. But
and I just remember like if I was like flipping through the channels that night during the week or something, I see like DC United games back when they were in like the FedEx Stadium, or it was just like always empty, and so you'd have like these odd games that looked really bad on TV where like it was just very, very empty.
That's why the executives are pushing so hard for everyone to have this soccer specific stadium.
Exactly. So
obviously
that they can grow into it.
So you can grow into it, and so it actually looks good, and you have a better atmosphere and stuff like that. For our Charlotte FC people, for context of what Charlotte FC is trying to do, they're going to start off in Bank of America, and they're selling the lower bowl. So their kind of goal is to hit that. The lower bowl capacity is right around 30,000. So that's kind of the ownership group's goal right now, is to be selling out that 30,000 consistently, which is what Atlanta United does quite a bit. They tarp off the top and they sell out the bottom.
Even
and then,
to the same note, like Seattle Sounders, like they're in CenturyLink, and that's where Seattle Seahawks play, and they do that for like their top tier of their.
So it's a bit of a challenge to Charlotte, right? Because the rival's going to be Atlanta. So there's a bar to set there. They've got Arthur Blank there. He's the owner. You know, David Tepper doesn't want to be second place to Arthur Blank. He's going to be coming in splashing the cash. So it's a bit of a challenge to Charlotte soccer fans. Like, we got to fill that stadium and kind of try to get close to those Atlanta
numbers. I'm pretty hopeful
numbers.
for it. Like every person I've talked to about it, it's like, I definitely buy season tickets, especially if they're like reasonably affordable too.
So it's going to be fascinating to track that and see where Charlotte FC comes in on those statistics. So here's some other statistics for you. Revenue, okay? So the average revenue per team in MLS is $39 million, okay? So that puts us right above the championship, which is the second division in England. They are $35 million per team. And then, so you're right around like that area. And then you've obviously just got some like crazy, like, France's league is 82 million, Serie A's is 113, all the way up to the Premier League, which is 265. So that is just like a crazy amount of revenue. To put it in context of American sports, the average revenue for an NFL team, that was 39 million in euros. So $44 million in American dollars. NFL for MLS team, average revenue per team. NFL $377 million per team. That's the average revenue. MLB $291 million, NBA $225 million, NHL $104 million, Power 5 college football $83 million. MLS about half of that. High major college basketball $21 million. 21 million. So you're still talking like that's healthy revenue, right? Like we're talking $44 million revenue.
And it's sustainable, most importantly.
So
as well.
That's important to think about when you're saying like, oh, like why doesn't like my MLS team like buy this player for $20 million? Yeah. Well, your revenue is
and then
only
you gotta think like your profit
200%
too,
of that.
at the end of that, what you get to keep in terms of like building on to like what you can spend like the next year without taking too much of a
exactly.
loss.
So if you want to know why the revenue is a bit lower, here's kind of a breakdown of the revenue we get. MLS team, 50% of their revenue is match day revenue. That gives you an idea of how much they're struggling right now in the coronavirus pandemic.
I think the NFL is probably a similar.
I don't have the NFL statistics. Yeah. Corporate sponsors for MLS teams is 40%, and broadcast gives them 10% of the revenue. Only 10%. Compare that to the top 20 European teams. So across all of Europe, the top 20 teams, broadcast source of revenue 45%. Only 18% match day. And 30, and similar for the corporate sponsors, 38%.
So like them going to,
that's where the difference is, because when you are like basing your revenue on match day, that's capped to how big your stadium is and how much you're charging for tickets. So there isn't a lot of room to go there. So, but that's actually a bit of a good thing for us, because that means we're maxing out match day revenue right now, and broadcast revenue. When we renegotiate the TV deal for Major League Soccer, that's going to be a big deal.
Like, what, a year or two?
Yeah, pretty soon. It's going to be right before the 2026 World Cup. So that's kind of like the business metric right now, is like, you know, trying to get a better TV deal. Yeah, so that's going to give you more and more profit and help these owners to turn a better profit. But to give you an idea of why these TV ratings are a little lower, so this is the average number of viewers per national telecast. It doesn't include live streaming. So the NFL, 14.9 million. Okay, they're a major outlier. The next closest is Power 5 college football, 2 to 5 million. NBA, 1.3 million, kind of all the way down.
There's like a 10 million gap.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh my God.
It's crazy. More like a 13 million gap between the NBA and the NFL. MLB, 1 million. The Premier League in the U.S. gets 383,000. MLS gets 307,000. So it's not actually that far behind, according to what I'm looking at right now.
And
I mean, obviously these measures aren't like apples to apples and stuff like that. But a lot of these statistics are from like Forbes and a lot of that kind of stuff.
Cool.
But there's huge spikes
shocking
for
to me, though,
postseason events stuff.
I would be dead convinced that
Premier League soccer.
I mean, I would be interested to see what like Liga MX. Like,
Liga MX is 584,000 in the U.S.
So I figured it would be a lot higher.
Okay, everyone, make sure you heard that right. Liga MX, which is the Mexican First Division. In the U.S., their TV rating is 584,000. Compare that to the Premier League, 383,000. So if you are a Major League Soccer executive, don't waste your time marketing towards the European soccer fans. There is such a big Latino population and Hispanic population in the United States that is big soccer fans. Like if you can be a dual language club like Inter Miami is doing a great job of doing right now.
LAFC,
if you do that stuff, LAFC, like that, you will get tons of fans of that because the base is there. So that's a little bit of a soapbox for me there, but so that's kind of where MLS stands in the hierarchy of both European soccer and U.S. soccer. So all in all, not where we want to be, not where MLS wants to be. It wants to be higher, but not in a horrible spot either. No. Not as bad as you would maybe think, given sometimes their lack of relevance.
I mean, you don't really see them on like Sports Center or anything like that. I mean, other than like the odd like bicycle kick or something.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, other than that, there's not too much.
So obviously the big focus for them is going to be getting a better TV deal. And
that's killer.
Yeah, so that's going to be really big. And obviously the 2026 World Cup is going to be here in the United States, as well as Mexico and Canada. So really big. MLS has got to really gain some momentum here and hook on to the momentum of that World Cup, just like they have done, as we talked about, throughout their history. 1996 was the genesis for the league. 2002 helped us stabilize. And then now, hopefully, 2026 helps us get a better TV deal and helps us place ourselves more among the major parts of the hierarchy of,
and especially after COVID, like that's really exposed like those butts and seats kind of I guess revenue structures that I mean, at least the NFL is like very known for having that. That's why you have all these teams are advocating for, hey, we really want to get our fans back. And so you see that with MLS. If you watch like anytime recently, even in the highlights, you have fans like at games now, even in the midst of COVID. And then you got NFL coming up and people wanting to do that. But you go over to Europe, they're banking like 40 whatever percent, like that you said, on TV revenue alone. Right. And so they don't have a single fan. And they have stadiums that can fit like just as many as like our NFL stadiums. And, and they aren't hurting nearly as bad, like threatening, like, you know, going under necessarily.
So I think these numbers kind of give you an idea of why Major League Soccer is trying to really conservatively and methodically and intentionally grow. They don't just want to take the reins off and just let people spend freely, because we're just not generating that kind of revenue and relevance yet. And if you let that happen, then that's what happens with that's what happened with the NASL basically. Stuff comes crashing down. So they're trying to methodically grow it.
How they can balance that.
That's the problem.
Like choking the regulations too much, which I think that they're at a point right now, because they're kind of at a tipping point in terms of just like my background of like understanding foreign markets of how they structure it. Like I mean, I tried to look at like how Charlotte FC like signed our first player or whatever, and it just makes no sense. And they were talking about like these articles were talking about all these rules and stipulations, and it was just a headache. And I was like, I mean, if it's like a headache for like a new fan, like, you know, I mean, it's hard. It's got to be hard for all these executives as well.
So that's why we're here, though. We're going to, we'll plug episode 4 again. Head on over to episode 4. We'll explain all that stuff to you. It does look really, really overwhelming at first, but when you kind of break it down, it makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of parallels to what happens in a lot of other American sports leagues. If you're a European soccer fan, you might not be quite as familiar with it, but if you're American, I'm sure you know a little bit at least about like NFL, NBA, that kind of stuff. So we'll break it down, and it won't get too bad. I promise.
No,
I'll make it. We'll make the complex simple on that one. So that about wraps us up through our general overview and introduction to the league. Hopefully, Matt, you feel a little bit better about just your general knowledge of how all this stuff works from a competition standpoint.
I mean, I don't really know the history of MLS other than just like the quirks that you'll see, like weirdest MLS things that you see on like YouTube. If you watch any soccer, like the algorithm for YouTube will like automatically put up these like obscure videos of MLS. So that's cool. I'll be excited to kind of learn more about transfer policies. How like different teams approach establishing a culture like that's unique to their city.
Exactly.
And I mean, just like in general, getting to learn more about the teams and like the different characteristics of the league, because it's so much different than anything that I'm used to, and hopefully that much of our audience will also not be used to.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see what more anomalies we find within the MLS as we kind of dive deeper in the future.
Yep, exactly. So next up, we're going to have episode 2. We'll give you an outline of all the teams in MLS. So we'll tell you who's important, who's good, who's been historically good and isn't as good now. We'll give you some comparisons to American sports and European soccer as we have done throughout. And then we'll get into the players in episode 3, then those roster rules that you're really interested in episode 4, and then those special competitions like Champions League, US Open Cup, MLS All-Star Game in episode 5. So that's where we're going. Hopefully you'll tune in. Please, if you guys can, listen and subscribe. That helps us out a lot. And if you know anyone that would enjoy this and is looking to become a fan of Major League Soccer Charlotte or Charlotte FC, please share this podcast with them. We'd like to grow the audience base as much as possible.
And you can follow us on our social medias, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter.
I'll drop those links in the show notes for us. And give us a follow there. Always open to you guys interacting with us. Send us a DM, send us an email at whatthefcpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear the types of questions you have. Maybe we glossed over something that you're like, wait, that doesn't make sense. Or you'd like to hear us talk about something specific, or you have a story idea for us later on. Feel free to drop that stuff to us. So.
And maybe we can do an episode where like, or at least parts of episodes where we just like catch little blips that we might have missed that y'all point out, and make sure to respond to those as soon as possible.
Exactly. All right. So this is us signing off. Again, I'm Will Martin.
And I'm Matt McCutcheon.
And this is What the FC.